Everyone, like I said, my name is Lusvardi and I teach political science here at Millikan University. Usually when I talk, I like to walk around a lot, but I have a soft voice, so I'm going to go ahead and chain myself to this lectern, and if I walk off and you can't hear me anymore, I apologize. So I have to apologize already because I can't give you a topic as sexy as Harry Potter. I wish I could. But I'm giving you a topic I think is second place as sexy as Harry Potter, which is the 2016 election. So political science, we love elections. I love elections. Before I took on this glamorous job of working in academia, I myself was a reporter. My husband is a reporter. So in my house, we love politics and we also love the media. We love journalism. So I study that as part of what I do as part of my job, is to look at how does the media influence the way that we act when it comes to politics, and how does the media influence the way that our politicians act. So that's a little bit about what we're going to be looking at today. Keep track in your mind, or write it down if you want to. You will not be graded on this quiz. But before we get started on the quiz, I want you guys to first think of 2015, 2016, who are all the people who you can think of who ran for president of the United States this last election cycle. So you probably know who's still running for president of the United States, but I want you to try to think of all the people who did run. So there's going to be 10 photos I'm going to show you. I want you to think of, out of these 10, how many people can you identify? Are you ready? I know what you're thinking. I was told I wasn't going to have to work. I was just going to have to sit here. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. So number 1. Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5. Number 6. Number 7. Eight. Look nervous. 9. I think that your list was on. You guys must count. Why don't you tell me? All right, so how did you do? How many people got 10 out of 10? Oh, 2 people. You guys should do my job. You thought about a career in political science? 7 out of 10 or more? 5 out of 10? All right. See, we knew about half at least. Well, interestingly, this is one of the most qualified fields of people who have run for president of the United States this year. So as you can see from my list, most of these people were governors or United States senators, and actually some of them governors and United States senators. So a really, really qualified field of people running for president of the United States, many of whom you maybe never even heard of, because although Lincoln Chafee might be really well known in Rhode Island, not very well known anywhere else in the country. So Governor Martin O'Malley, you guys might remember him. He tried to give Hillary Clinton a run for her money. He dropped out of the race. Scott Walker left early. Jim Webb, Lindsey Graham, Jim Gilmore, Rick Santorum, Lincoln Chafee, George Pataki, Bobby Jindal, and Rand Paul all had what we in political science would consider to be a good enough qualification to be president of the United States. So oftentimes people in the United States really like former governors to become president. They think governors play a good role to eventually become president. This is not that year. So I'm guessing 100% of you recognize this person. And I didn't pull up a photo of Hillary Clinton either, but I'm guessing all of you could recognize her as well. The two of them already have a pretty good advantage coming into this election. Pretty much everyone knows Hillary Clinton. She was a former First Lady. Senator Donald Trump, if you've ever seen the television show The Apprentice or seen pretty much anything of his ever, any of his marketing, any of his Trump towers, he's a known entity as well. So of all the people in the race who probably needed a little bit of extra media attention, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are not those two people. That's not the way this plays out. All right, so this gets to the thesis of my talk, which is that if the media treats candidates unequally, does that actually lead us to take different actions when we go to the ballot box? So do people vote differently as a result of how much attention the media does or does not pay to particular candidates? So as I'm going to show you, as you're going to find out, the media this election cycle, and if you watch any news at all whatsoever, you could probably say this for yourself. I probably wouldn't even have to prove it to you. It does not give all candidates equal attention. So how unequal is that attention? You will see. So really, really quick, a primer on media and politics. This is like the learning portion of the talk. Some ways in political science in which we study media and politics. The first one, tone. So that is, how positive or negative is a story? So back in 2008, Hillary Clinton supporters argued that Hillary Clinton got really negative coverage in comparison to Barack Obama. They thought Barack Obama got this really positive coverage, while Hillary Clinton got some really negative coverage. If you remember, like, the Obama girl, this is before your time, children, I'm sorry. But he got a lot of really positive attention. We call that tone. Second of all, framing. So let's say we're talking about protests at a Donald Trump rally. I might turn on Fox News, and Fox News says, some hooligans are out here disrupting a friendly Donald Trump rally. And if I turn on Rachel Maddow on MSNBC, she probably says, there's some civil libertarians out at a Donald Trump rally expressing their First Amendment freedom of speech. That's framing. They show you the same story, but they show it in a different way. Third idea, agenda setting. That means the media gets to choose which issues they cover. A criticism that we get a lot in the United States for the way that our media acts is that we don't cover a lot of international issues. In the United States, we're woefully uninformed about the rest of the world. We pay a lot of attention to, like, the Kardashians, but we don't pay a lot of attention to the rest of the world. That's agenda setting. The media chooses what they're going to tell us about based on what they think we're going to be most interested in. Keep in mind, it's a business, so they have to figure out how to make money. The very last thing, the thing I'm going to talk about today, is the amount of coverage. So all candidates being equal, and like I said, we had a really qualified field of candidates this time. Who's getting the most amount of attention and why? Really quick, how do you guys think most people get their news?
They get it online.
So you're half right, which is that young people like yourself, get it online. So people about up to age 25 to 28 get the majority of their news online or from apps. But old people like myself, and the rest of us even older than me, we still get the majority of our news from television. So young people, your generation, as you get older, everyone will get their news online. But older people still get the majority of their news from television. Sadly, newspapers take a long third to all of that. The 24-hour news cycle changed everything. So I know that we live in a time today when it's hard to even imagine. Before CNN existed, Fox News existed, MSNBC existed, there were, children, listen to this, there were only certain times of day that you could turn on the TV and get news. It's crazy, I know. But back in the 1980s, CNN was created, and now we have this 24-hour news cycle, which means at any time of day you can get any news that you want. The downside of that is that there's only so much news to fill that 24 hours. So we get this sort of what we call in politics horse race coverage, which is like, who said something exciting now? Who said something interesting now? Let's just, whatever the most interesting thing is, that's what we're going to cover. So sometimes the most qualified candidate isn't always the most interesting candidate. So sometimes candidates saying really important things aren't getting any media attention because it's just not that interesting and it doesn't keep people going in a 24-hour news cycle. I don't know about you guys, I have a ton of news apps on my phone and I update them all the time. So if I'm gonna look at the New York Times app 6 different times in one day, which I do, I'm sad to say, I want news stories to come up every single time I click on that app. And so does the rest of America, which means they need to give you something that is interesting to you. All right, I'm sorry, there's more learning. But in order for you to understand whether or not it's important that different candidates get different coverage, I have to first tell you what the rules are. So there is, the Federal Communications Commission oversees all media rules as it comes to politics in the United States. And there's an equal time rule that goes all the way back to 1932 that still stands today, not to be confused with the Fairness Doctrine, which they got rid of. The equal time rule says that broadcast networks, not cable networks. So cable networks are exempt from this. But broadcast networks have to give equally, legally qualified candidates equal time on TV. However, there's sort of like a big but to this, which is it doesn't include documentaries and it doesn't include news programs at all. So any type of news program, news event is completely, does not have to follow this rule whatsoever. However, do you guys watch Saturday Night Live? Yeah, I love Saturday Night Live. Well, 2 candidates appeared on Saturday Night Live this year, which is on NBC. So first of all, Hillary Clinton did a short stint on Saturday Night Live. She was on there for about 3 minutes. Donald Trump hosted Saturday Night Live. He was on the show over the course of an hour and a half for a total of about 12 minutes, 3 seconds, which I know doesn't sound like that much, but there's a lot of people on the show. So what his opponents were able to do were to say to NBC, in order to meet this equal time rule, you have to give all of us 12 minutes. And NBC was required to comply with that. So 4 of his opponents actually asked NBC for their 12 minutes, 3 seconds, and NBC on 18 of its affiliates had to give them that 12 minutes. They gave them some commercials to run during actually a rerun of Saturday Night Live. The equal time rules don't require that your information comes out in the same way. So just because Donald Trump hosted Saturday Night Live doesn't mean they have to let Ted Cruz host Saturday Night Live. They just have to give them the equal amount of time and airtime, not in the same fashion and not even in the same time of day. So that's sort of how those rules work. So most of the time when we're talking about people getting a lot of airtime, it's during some kind of news program, and that's exempt from the rules. And the FCC even includes things such as Entertainment Tonight, TMZ? What's that entertainment show, children? Okay. TMZ News, The View, anything that's on during the day, Ellen, any of those things are considered news programs and thus are exempt from the FCC equal time rule. So they have a lot of leeway in how they cover the candidates. Oops, sorry, got crazy. So another thing that's important to understand is that one of the main costs a candidate will ever incur is advertising, particularly in a large media market. And the #1 reason why people drop out of a presidential race is because they run out of money. So no money, no campaign, you're done. So they look for a lot of ways in order to get this free advertising because that helps get their name out there. Name recognition is really, really important in American politics. Thus, candidates spend a lot of money to get those advertising dollars and get people to know them better. So free advertising is really good. I'm getting ready to show you something I know people already love. Lots of charts. You guys love charts?
Yeah.
Well, you're going to be disappointed. I've got some charts for you. All right, this first chart shows you, first on the left is the Democratic side, on the right is the Republican side. Right, okay. How much as a percentage of all coverage certain candidates get compared to other candidates. So if you look, is my laser pointer anymore? Here we go. This big blue chunk right here, that's Hillary Clinton. That's how much media coverage Hillary Clinton has gotten in comparison to her rivals in the Democratic Party. So that little black chunk right there next to her, that's Bernie Sanders. And those tiny little slivers are her opponents who have been gone for a very long time. Over here on the other side, this big blue chunk right there is Donald Trump. The Republican field was a very, very crowded field this year, and out of all of those names, Donald Trump got more than 50% of all the coverage of all Republican candidates. So a lot of free advertising. More charts. If you look on this chart here, that first really, really tall bar, that's Donald Trump. That's how many, it's broken down by network, how many mentions he got broken down by network. And then the next person after him is Hillary Clinton, and after Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders. But I don't think I have to tell you, Donald Trump blows all of those people way out of the water. Okay, this chart shows you of the candidates who spent the most money of their own campaign money trying to get advertising. The person who spent the most money was Jeb Bush. Do you guys remember Jeb Bush? Jeb Bush was really early in the game the favorite to win the presidential nomination. He is, of course, the brother of former President George W. Bush. He had a ton of money in campaign funds. So he actually sort of breaks this mold. We usually think the person who has the most money tends to win the election. So for example, when President Obama ran against John McCain, Obama had so much more money than McCain, you guys. I mean, I think at night he probably just rolled around in money. He took like an entire hour of time off of TV one night and he just had a ton of money. McCain didn't even come close. So usually when someone has this much money, it helps them a lot in the election. It did not help Jeb Bush. He exited the race fairly early, a lot earlier than anyone expected, despite spending more than $80 million in advertising. If you look way down, Donald Trump, by comparison, only had to spend $10 million of his campaign money in advertising. Why, do you ask? Because you don't have to spend all this money in advertising when you get a lot of free advertising. When the media talks about you all the time, you don't have to run any campaign ads because people are already always talking about you. This clicker and I are balance. So this graph here shows that Donald Trump got the equivalent of $2 billion in what we would consider to be free advertising by mentions in the media. Again, coming in second, Hillary Clinton. So, you know, Donald Trump is our presumptive Republican nominee. Hillary Clinton is our presumptive Democratic nominee, although this process isn't quite over yet. Bernie fans are still hanging in there. But both of them are presumptive nominees, and Donald Trump wins by a mile, but Hillary Clinton comes in second in getting all of this free advertising. Okay. So to the bigger point, does any of this make a difference? I know I showed you a lot of charts and now you just want to run away. But I showed you a lot of charts. Does any of it make a difference? The short answer is yes, usually. You guys have probably heard the phrase before, all publicity is good publicity, right? So just go on with me. I've heard it. Okay, that's fine. All publicity is good publicity. Usually that's true. There's some exceptions. Sometimes a candidate says something so outlandish, so offensive, that it ends up hurting their campaign. I'll give you an example. There's a guy who ran in Missouri. His name is Todd Akin. He ran against a woman named Senator Claire McCaskill. Todd Akin said during his campaign that if a woman was legitimately raped, then it wouldn't result in an unwanted pregnancy. As you can imagine, that comment got nationwide attention. It was in the New York Times, it was on CNN. It hurt his poll numbers so badly that he and Claire McCaskill had been in a fairly close race, and he ended up losing fairly badly. So sometimes it is. Sometimes publicity is bad publicity and it does hurt you. But overall, some things that we know from political science and from political psychology are that the more you hear someone's name, obviously the more you recognize them, the more you know about them. Like I said, a lot of candidates spend millions and even billions of dollars in advertising just trying to get people to recognize their name. So something that we know from political science is that sometimes when people are driving, just driving to the polls, getting ready to go vote, on that drive to the polls, they don't even know who they're going to vote for yet. They don't make that decision until they even walk into the door of their polling place. And they look at all of those names on the ballot. And that's why understanding a candidate, knowing them, just having name recognition is really, really important. So that's why the more the media pays attention to a candidate, that's like free advertising they didn't have to spend money on. Because the candidate is better known to all of you people. All of you can go on election day, look at that ballot and say, I know that name, I'm gonna vote for that person. Also, some things we know from political psychology are that the more you hear about someone, the more you're likely to relate to them, the more likely you are to find them more relatable. So, short answer, yes, it matters. The more we hear about a candidate matters because people recognize you, they know you, they find you likable, they find you relatable. So all of those other people whose faces you didn't recognize, they weren't able to get that kind of attention. They weren't as interesting, the media didn't find their message as interesting, what have you. Okay, so. Questions. I'll also field Harry Potter questions, as I too have read all 7 of those books. So, politics or Harry Potter questions, we'll take either one. Yeah?
So one thing that people have said is that in modern America, you have large amounts of money, and that allows people to win fairly easily, and that can be seen as a big problem in a big democracy. Do you think this trend of not spending as much money and getting community attention is actually potentially good for democracy because it breaks that, or do you think overall it's still a big flaw of the system?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. One thing that we're saying in our research now is that when books about political science or peer-reviewed journal articles are written about political science, like 10, 15 years down the road, they're all going to say asterisks, except the 2016 election, because the 2016 election has really changed everything that we know about politics and everything that we know about political spending, because looking at these charts as someone should have won by our conventional wisdom of who should have won, Jeb Bush should have won. Jeb Bush should be the presumptive nominee because Jeb Bush spent the most money, and that didn't work out. And so in a way, I told my students, it's almost like great for democracy, because regardless of what they think about Donald Trump, or regardless of even what they think about Bernie Sanders, who's really come a lot further than people thought that he would, that's the voice of America speaking, is they're not having to spend tons of money, and Americans are flocking after them anyways. The downside of that, again, is the idea of the spectacle. The spectacle that has to be created in order to get that media attention is like, what do candidates have to do to get that sort of spectacle of the media paying attention to them and caring about them? And I think, so to answer your question in a really wishy-washy sort of a way, it's both good and bad. It's good because it tells us you don't have to spend billions of dollars just to win an election, but it also says in order to skip out on spending that billion of dollars, you have to be a constant staple in the media. In order to be a constant staple in the media, you have to always be doing something, saying something bigger than somebody else. Yep.
I was curious because I know a lot of young people are online. We're actually part of the trend of not watching just the 24 news cycle. I think there's a lot of us that have switched over back to newspapers, online newspapers, different sources. How do you think that changes then if the 24-hour cycle had such a huge effect in moving politics in that direction, do you think we're going to see a shift again as if it starts to go more and more? Because we know a lot of people have started going away from that 24-hour cycle media and finding other sources?
Well, thus far, what we generally find in terms of what people seek out for what they read is that people want to either read or watch things that match how they already feel. So people who feel like they're conservatives have certain news sources, people who feel like they're liberals have certain news sources. So people try to match the message that they're going to get to the way that they usually feel, whether that's in a newspaper, whether that's on the radio, whether that's on TV. It really depends. It's more about people want to be reinforced in the way that they feel and have their media source tell them what they think they already know. But whether or not there's going to, people will finally reach a point where they get fed up of like horse race coverage and spectacle coverage and sort of move away from that 24-hour news cycle. I don't see it happening really soon because we want to be entertained. I want to be entertained. Everyone wants to be entertained. So the media is giving us what we want. We want entertainment. Yes?
We're going to cover which house do you want to be in. I think it would be good in couple.
I'm sorry. Can you say a little bit
Harry
more?
Potter house will you be in?
Oh, okay. So I've taken this quiz multiple times, including on Pottermore, and I've always come out of Gryffindor. But I feel like I might be manipulating the quiz. All right. Well, thank you guys. I think you've got another person coming to you in about a minute.